Maxine Waters was recently interviewed by Ayman Mohyeldin on MSNBC discussing the desperate need for federal police reforms. That is, federal laws aimed at reforming police. Let's have a look.
We begin this hour with the breaking news on the tragic death of 29-year-old Tyree Nichols at the hands of police in Memphis, Tennessee. There are demonstrations again tonight in cities across the nation after Friday's release of 4 harrowing videos of the deadly police assault. This comes as the Memphis Police Department announced it has permanently deactivated its so-called Scorpion unit. That's the group all 5 of the officers involved in Tyree Nichols' death were members of. And those officers have already been fired by the police department, and they are now charged with his murder. It is an important first step towards justice for Nichols and his family, but that is just it. It is a first step.
Context as well. Those officers were fired. There was no further talk from the community leaders. There was no further talk from the police in that community about what else they're going to do. Glad to see that Scorpion unit is no longer in existence. So they'll find another tough-sounding acronym in order to give police an insane amount of power. Not acceptable. Let's hear what Maxine has to say.
We have to ask, why does this keep happening? George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Philando Castile, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, Daunte Wright, Andre Hill. They all died at the hands of police, leading to protest after protest. And yet nothing has been done at the federal level to reform policing in America. President Biden has vowed to sign into law a comprehensive and meaningful police reform bill while he is in office. But the odds of passing anything significant, let alone comprehensive, seems vanishingly small.
Got to get through the House and the Senate. House is controlled by a bunch of white nationalists.
Remember Republican Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina? Back in 2021, he and Democratic Senator Cory Booker began working on a police reform bill, but that effort ultimately fell apart. Now, there appear to be no
blocked in part by Kamala Harris's actions, but also, most notably, and never forget these names, Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. Forget if he talks about it in here, but those two are responsible for killing the end of the filibuster, rather, for saving the filibuster. The filibuster is what made it impossible to pass any substantive laws when the Democrats controlled the House. You can thank Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema for that.
No major efforts in Congress to reform policing. Why not? Well, Democrats no longer control the House, and the new Republican majority seems much more interested in investigating Hunter Biden and the FBI than any real governance. But it wasn't always that way. Remember, for the first 2 years of the Biden White House, Democrats actually had control of both chambers of Congress. So why didn't they seize the opportunity and get anything done? You can thank these two.
There we go.
Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. It was Sinema and Manchin who dug in their heels to block filibuster reform. And that meant to get anything done, Democrats had to secure 60 votes instead of a simple 50-vote majority. Preserving the filibuster effectively killed a wide range of Democratic legislative priorities, including police reform. And look, here's Sinema and Manchin high-fiving each other just last week at Davos over their efforts to block filibuster reform.
Disgusting.
Great job, guys. Well done. But here's the thing. They weren't just high-fiving the failure of filibuster reform. They were high-fiving the failure of police reform. And that's the consequence they own tonight. Joining me now is California Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Congresswoman, thank you so much.
I do want to get to, I very much want to hear what she has to say. But first and foremost, yeah, we have to make them own that. This is what you can do. One of the things you can do is have a good memory. With the sheer weight of scandals that are a direct result of corruption in the United States, it can be difficult. I understand. If you are having trouble keeping track of who you should be angry with and what you should do about it, go big to small. Largely, how do we feel about the last 2 years with Democrats? Did we get a significant change to the minimum wage? No, we did not. Did we get police reform? No, we did not. All of the legislative goals that were there for Democrats were hampered by the filibuster in one way or another. Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin are the reason we couldn't get anything done on that front. So, you don't have to remember every single Sinema and Manchin scandal, of which there are a ton. Once you hit the amount of information that is enough for you to say, I do not want this person in Congress in any form. I certainly do not want them in the Democratic Party. When I donate to Democrats, I want 0% of that to go to helping them. Once you get to that point, you don't have to keep going. You don't have to keep digging for more. Don't exhaust yourself, I would even say, with every little thing. The broad strokes are, these people inhibited some of the most important legislation that could have been passed. Now we know. Let's not forget about it in 6 months.
For being here. I want to start with your reaction to the death of Tyre Nichols at the hands of Memphis police. What do you make of it?
Well, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity and for giving exposure to what has happened with the brutal beating and killing of Tyre Nichols. I'm grieving along with his family and friends. I'm a Black mom. And when I hear that he was asking them, please, don't beat me, he called for his mom the same way George Floyd did. Us Black moms and Black grandmothers, we feel this pain very deeply. I don't have any really great hopes for the fact that we're going to be able to pass police reform. It is racism in its purest form. How can you not be outraged by the killings of human beings when you see that they have been beaten, the chokehold has been used, a knee has been placed on George Floyd's neck, when you find that going back to Rodney King, the vicious beatings that took place, how difficult it was to try and get justice then. And so it's a struggle and it's a fight. And they want us to be quiet. But I'm angry, as many of us are, and I don't care whether it's a white cop or a Black cop. If they are brutally beating and targeting and killing young Black and brown men and some women, we've got to stay out there. We've got to protest. We've got to challenge them. We've got to say to the police associations that we're going to stop elected officials from taking your money so that they will not act against you when you are basically protecting these road cops. So we've got to do all of this work. And some people don't like it when I say stay on the street, protest. Yes, and I'll say it again as I said it years ago. No justice, no peace.
Okay. So I'm very much pleased to hear that being aired on national television. What can we do about it? Let's talk about lessons learned from George Floyd. Because I was delighted at first with those protests. What happened, though? Got all that energy out there. had all that momentum, marched all the way to Washington. There's pictures where the camera lens is filled with angry faces. Wasn't a very efficient use of that energy, though. Because what were they calling for? Even the phrase that they tried, the organizers tried to sort of plan around, I suppose, defund the police. What does that actually mean? You ask a dozen people there at those protests what they meant when they held up a sign that said defund the police, you'd get a dozen different answers. A lot of them I like. A lot of them I support. But if you were out there protesting, it has to be for something specific if it has a hope in hell of accomplishing anything. You can't just go out there and say, conditions are bad, make conditions better. Because that, you're talking to politicians. These are people who specialize in doing nothing and packaging it in 100 different ways to make it seem like they've been busy all day. Every politician is that guy at your office that doesn't do any real work, and everybody knows it. But every time you look over, he's tip, 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 tip typing. That's a politician's entire career, by and large. My point is we have to be clear and simple with what we're requesting. To that, what you can do, you can write your representative. Each one of us is responsible for what comes out of the mouth of the representative of our district. The representative of our district does not rely on the votes of somebody in a different state, like the president does. They don't even rely on the votes of somebody in a different part of your state, like your senator does, like your governor does. Your district representative has to please you and the other people in your district. That is why I so strongly recommend that you contact them when it comes to issues like this. Don't contact them with a bunch of things because they won't even read the whole message. Contact them with one thing. This is what I recommend. Write your representative and tell them to endorse a federal database of police misconduct. It is not a Band-Aid that will fix all the policing problems in the United States. What it will do, it will make it so that if there is a racist cop out there and he gets fired from Department A, he cannot simply go to Department B, apply, and get hired. Having the gall to put his experience as a racist cop in Department A on his resume. No. A federal police misconduct database will stop bad cops from being recirculated, just like bad priests are. It's not the only thing we need to do. It is, however, the first thing we need to do. It is clear the mood is correct in the country to get it passed now. Is it likely to pass? No, because we have the House of Representatives to deal with now. But make Republicans say no. Make Republicans have to take a vote on that. Make Republicans make it crystal clear where they are in relation to these issues. Right now they can say Tim Scott tried to pass a bill. No. Make the vote happen. Have your representative publicly endorse this measure, a federal police misconduct database. There's even a script in the description, along with a link to finding your representative, if you believe that is a good idea. That will put, assuming you contact them, assuming 3 or 4 other people do as well, that will put those words in the mouth of somebody who gets national attention. You want to talk about multiplying your efforts? That's a great way to do it. Let's have a look at some of the comments. Ariel says, LOL, I'm still stuck on Iran-Contra. Oh, a woman after my own heart. Yes, indeed. There is a reason that this is permanently in my palette of graphics to go to. Because those two cats behind me, Ronald Reagan and his, at the time, Vice President, George H.W. Bush, they got away with it. And their fall guy got to then be the head of the NRA, Oliver North. Ridiculous. If there's any good to be derived from that American embarrassment, it should be that we now know, or we can point to it and say, look, these problems have always been here. The time has simply arrived to deal with them, to end this corruption.